Welcome into One of One Sports, the only one for your original sports commentary and analysis. And today we are officially halfway through the college football season, so I figured it's time to give an updated look at our Power Four Conference Championship predictions and, of course, our updated college football playoff bracket. Let's get into it. All right, so we start off in the ACC, and in the preseason, it's a rough pick here. We took Clemson to beat Miami. So of course, Miami getting there, not a bad pick, and I'm still gonna have Miami there. Spoiler alert. But yeah, this Clemson pick obviously didn't age very well, and Clemson has been arguably the most disappointing team in the country. You can argue them, Texas, Penn State, any of these teams, right? But with all Clemson had coming back and all the hype, to start 1-3 was really disappointing. So for the updated, I already mentioned Miami's going to be there, but who's going to be the second team, because it's not going to be Clemson? And I'm really down to three options. It's Virginia, it's Georgia Tech, and it's Duke. Duke is a team I picked to go 10-2 in the preseason, so I was really high on them. And though they had a rough start, I think you look at their schedule, and they're going to get Virginia and Georgia Tech at home, and Georgia Tech coming off a bye. I think they have the easiest schedule to finish up compared to Georgia Tech and compared to Virginia, so I am going to go with Duke to make the ACC title game. And I do think Miami will win the conference. And it is crazy to think that Duke would be, just one upset win away in, playing in Charlotte, North Carolina. So essentially they have a home game in the ACC title game if they get there to go to the college football playoff. I don't think they would win this game at all. I think Miami's better at everything. The O-line, I think, would crush Duke. The D-line would crush Duke. Miami, far and away the better team, but head and shoulders above everyone in the ACC, in my opinion. But it's still interesting to think about Duke getting a home game to potentially go to the playoff. But yes, Miami Hurricanes over Duke is my updated ACC championship prediction. Now moving on to the Big Ten, where this one's a little bit more interesting, because in the preseason I picked a four-way tie for first place. I thought Ohio State would have one conference loss. I thought Michigan would have one conference loss, and same goes for Oregon and Penn State. And then because of the tiebreakers, I had it ended up being Ohio State and Michigan rematching after the game in the conference title game. And what I predicted there was that Michigan would win the game for the fifth year in a row, and then Ohio State in a rematch in a neutral site would beat Michigan to win the Big Ten. So that was my preseason prediction. Updated now, though, because in those preseason predictions, I had said I think Oregon is actually better than both Ohio State and Michigan. But Oregon, because of the way the tiebreakers worked, had them losing to Penn State, they wouldn't make the Big Ten title game. Now that they've got Penn State out of the way, I think it could be smooth sailing from here. If they beat Indiana this weekend, it's really just Washington left, road game, end of year rivalry game that I could see them tripping up. I think they're going to win that game. I think they're going to be undefeated, and they are the first team that I will pick to be in my updated Big Ten championship prediction. And who do I have them playing? Well, I think it's going to be coming down to the game. I think Ohio State and Michigan. Ohio State probably be undefeated at this point. Michigan will have the Oklahoma loss and maybe another conference loss. But either way, I think it's coming down to that game. Winner will go to the Big Ten title game. And look, on paper and on the field, actually, both. Ohio State has looked clearly superior than Michigan. The receivers are better. They've been the best defense in college football. The run game for Michigan is probably stronger, but Sayan has played better than Underwood up to this point. And really, there's not a true indicator to pick Michigan except for the history, right? Last year, what gave me a reason Michigan should have beat Ohio State last year? Ohio State was the most talented roster in the country and won the national title. Michigan barely had a guy who could complete a forward pass at quarterback, and they still got the win because Ryan Day has proven these past few years, I can't trust him in this spot. I can't trust him in this game. If they beat Michigan, which they should, I'll be proven wrong picking Michigan. It's just kind of like the Penn State thing where I'm not going to pick Penn State to beat Ohio State, right? Or Michigan under Harbaugh before they got it done. You weren't going to pick Michigan to win that game because it's just been over and over and over again. When I get it wrong, it'll be because Ohio State has finally flipped the script. So I think Michigan's going to win that game, sending them to the Big Ten Championship, where I will have Oregon defeating them. Like I said, I think Ohio State's clearly better than Michigan. I think Oregon's clearly better than Michigan, but doesn't have the psychological deficiencies Ohio State has seemed to have when they play this game. So I have Oregon completing an undefeated season and winning the Big Ten championship. Now we've got the Big 12, which was arguably a worse prediction than the ACC, where we had Kansas State over ASU. And what did Kansas State do to open the year? Lose to Iowa State, and then barely beat North Dakota, and lose to Army, and lose to Baylor, and lose to U of A. And it's just funny because they are right there. No matter who they play, they seem to be right there at the end of the game with a chance to win, whether it be Iowa State, who we think is a really good team, Baylor, who's a solid team, Arizona, who's a little bit beneath them but still good, or North Dakota, who's FCS, or Army, who hasn't been good at all. They find a way to make every game close, come down to the wire, and they seem to just find themselves on the wrong side of that. But needless to say, I will not be picking them to still be. Hold on, let me fix my mic. To still be in the Big 12 Conference Championship, obviously. And I picked them over Arizona State, who still has an outside chance of getting in, probably more than an outside chance. I don't think they're going to get in, though. I will be selecting two new teams, and we can reveal them. I'm going to select Texas Tech over Utah in my updated field. Texas Tech's the easy one here. I think they probably lose one conference loss. If I had to guess, it's probably coming soon when they go on the road to ASU. I don't think they're going to run the table, though I could see it because the talent gap between them and the rest of the Big 12 and the physicality gap, especially on the lines of scrimmage, just looks so large. Texas Tech's defense looks really good. The pass rush and the linebacking unit especially, and the interior of the line. Really just the front seven of Texas Tech looks head and shoulders above the rest of the Big 12. And the offense also looks really good. They're playing complementary football. They seemingly have hit on just every transfer they got out of the portal, spending all that money. It's paying off. I think they're clearly the class of the conference. The second spot, though, is a little bit more interesting because I think Iowa State could be here. I could see ASU being here. TCU, Cincinnati could be in on this. But I did go with Utah, who I think is a team like Texas Tech that because of the strength they have on the line of scrimmage, with Utah being the O-line, I think they'll find a way to win a lot of games just by running the ball so well. And if they get by ASU this weekend, which I think they will, there's really no one left on the schedule suited to handle Utah's run game if they play to their strengths. So I'm going to go with Utah and Devon Dampier to earn a rematch against the Red Raiders, where we saw the game round one in Utah in a raucous environment. Now at a neutral field where Texas Tech actually will probably have more supporters and they're a more talented team and they've already beaten you pretty handily. It's a clear Texas Tech win here. They are my updated Big 12 champions. Final Power 4 conference, and that is going to be the SEC, where in the preseason I picked Texas over Georgia. Another miss. Outside the Big Ten, there's some lifts here, like Clemson, Kansas State, and now Texas. This was much worse than my last year's predictions. It's just been a lot of disappointing teams that were picked to do, or at least by me, expected to do a lot of really good things. So Texas, the O-line hasn't been there. Arch Manning's not been what I thought he could be, or what a lot of other people thought he could be. Really, it's just been a disaster season so far for the Longhorns. Georgia, I had them losing the SEC title game. I think they're still going to make it. When you look at the remainder of their schedule, I wouldn't be surprised to see them win out. So I'm going to have them making the SEC title game. And then it came down to three teams for me to pick who they could play. It's Alabama, it's Ole Miss, and it's Texas A&M. Because I think A&M has a couple games on the road. LSU on the road against Missouri, I could see them losing. And then Ole Miss has, road games to Oklahoma and Georgia. I could see them losing. Alabama, I picked them to lose this weekend. But then after that, I think they can win the rest of the games on their schedule. LSU's going to be tough. Oklahoma's going to be tough. South Carolina could be tough. And Auburn's tricky to end the year. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them lose another. But right now I'm going out on a limb saying after this weekend they can run the table. So I have Alabama playing Georgia. And like I said for the Ohio State thing, I already made the mistake of picking Georgia to beat Alabama. At this point, I'm not picking Kirby Smart and Georgia to beat Alabama until they do it. If I get it wrong, it'll be because they flipped the script, like I just talked about with Ohio State. So I will go updated Alabama over Georgia for my SEC championship prediction. All right, so now we will unveil my updated bracket. But before we do, here's a look at what my preseason bracket was. There's some interesting things. Boise State was my group of 5 team. That's going to change. Penn State was at the 5 seed. Definitely going to change. And you can see my final 4 involved Texas, Clemson, Penn State, and Oregon. And I did pick Oregon to win the national championship. But of those, the final 4, Clemson's obviously not going to be there. Penn State, Texas, obviously not going to be there. I had Kansas State in here. There's a lot of rough picks. But But there's some teams I still like Oregon winning the national title, not a bad pick. I still like Ohio State and Bama and Georgia and Michigan in there. We'll see about Notre Dame. But all right, let's look at my new bracket. So first, the teams, my top 4 teams that I have getting buys. I think Oregon wins the Big Ten undefeated, #1 overall seed. Miami, I think, wins the ACC undefeated, #2 overall seed. And then Alabama winning the SEC, I'm going as 3 seed, and Texas Tech winning the Big 12, I think gets the 4 seed. Now we unveiled the at-large bids, and I know the conference champions don't automatically get the buys, it just happened to shake out that way. But yeah, Michigan at 5 is the Big Ten runner-up, Georgia at 6 is the SEC runner-up, Ohio State is a 1-loss team, but they didn't make the Big Ten championship, they come in at 7, Tennessee at 8, A&M 9, Notre Dame at 10, I think they're going to run the table the rest of the way. Ole Miss at 11, the other team that was in the mix for the SEC title. And then I have changed it to Memphis. I think it's definitely going to be an American team who gets that group of 5 spot, because North Texas, Tulane, Memphis, Navy, South Florida have formed a really strong top of that conference, especially for a group of 5 conference to have that. So I'm going with Memphis just because they get pretty much all the teams at home that they're going to face as the tough opponents of that conference. But looking at this, you saw before I had Oregon winning the national championship. Haven't moved off of that. I'm still going Oregon. Though instead of going Oregon versus Texas, I think it's definitely going to come down to either Miami or Ohio State. And I'm going to say, mostly because I really like Miami and I root for Michigan and don't like Ohio State, bit biased here, I'm going to go Oregon over Miami as my updated national championship pick. But I'm still rolling with the Ducks to win it all. Alright, with that being said, that is all my updated conference championship picks, playoff bracket, national championship pick. So if you guys enjoyed, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to help grow and support the channel. And comment down below which of your preseason predictions have changed, what are your updated picks. And I will see you guys all on Sunday after reaction to Saturday's games. Until next time.